Imagine living in a world where kindness is your guiding principle. A world where every action, every decision is colored by compassion. It sounds like the ideal way to live, doesn't it? We often hear that kindness can change the world. And indeed, it can. But what happens when being too kind begins to backfire? What happens when kindness alone isn't enough to protect you or maintain order in your life? Today, we're diving deep into one of the Buddha's most profound teachings that might surprise you. Kindness isn't always the answer. In fact, sometimes, it's your strength and ability to set boundaries that will bring you peace and protect your integrity. In this story, we'll explore the moment when a troubled king turns to the Buddha for advice. He's overwhelmed by the consequences of his newfound kindness. But it's Buddha's response, shared through a powerful story, that can change how we approach relationships, leadership, and personal boundaries. Stick with us until the end, because what you're about to hear may change the way you look at kindness and strength forever. But before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Buddhist Balance for more life-changing wisdom. Let's dive in. The story of the king and Buddha. The king's dilemma. In this powerful story, we meet a king who is facing an unexpected crisis. The king comes to Buddha, troubled, and explains the dramatic shift in his life. He used to rule with an iron fist, unafraid to punish those who wronged him, sometimes even with death. His rule was feared, and his people obeyed him out of terror. However, after adopting the teachings of Buddha, the king transformed. He turned from a cruel and vengeful leader to a compassionate one, seeking kindness and forgiveness, and abandoning the harsh punishments of the past. But the king's newfound compassion seems to have backfired. People no longer fear him. And, worse, they are exploiting his kindness. The crime rate in his kingdom is on the rise, and his authority is being undermined. The king feels helpless, unable to maintain order. His internal conflict is palpable, his moral values have shifted. But the consequences are harsh. He approaches Buddha, asking for guidance. What should I do now? This situation resonates with many of us in the modern world. We often face a choice between maintaining our kindness or asserting ourselves. There are times when our compassion, while noble, can leave us vulnerable. This is exactly the predicament the king finds himself in. The king wants to be a just and kind ruler, but in the process, he feels that his authority is crumbling. This is a common struggle, whether it's in leadership, relationships, or personal life, finding the balance between being kind and strong. Buddha begins the story. Buddha listens to the king's dilemma with patience and calm. With a gentle smile, he begins to share a story. Buddha's stories are always simple, yet profound. He knows that the key to understanding is often in a parable, a way of helping people see a situation from a new perspective. He begins, once there was a venomous snake that lived beneath a large tree on the outskirts of a village. This snake was infamous for attacking anyone who came near. Villagers were terrified, and the tree became a place to avoid. People would whisper about the danger, warning others to stay far away. The story shifts to a moment of calm, when a monk, traveling through the village, decides to meditate under that very tree. Despite the villagers' warnings, the monk isn't afraid. He smiles and sits down to meditate, undisturbed by the dangerous reputation of the snake. At this point, the lesson begins to unfold. Buddha's stories are never just about the events themselves, they are about the inner transformation that takes place when we shift our mindset. The monk's fearlessness in the face of danger is symbolic of the inner peace that comes from understanding that fear is often rooted in illusion. The encounter with the snake. As the monk meditates peacefully, the snake emerges from its hiding place, its eyes narrowing as it hisses angrily, ready to strike. The villagers watch in fear, expecting the monk to flee. But instead of reacting with fear or aggression, the monk remains calm. He gazes at the snake, unflinching, and begins to chant a mantra. It's a simple act of peaceful resistance, one that changes the course of the encounter. To everyone's surprise, the snake halts its approach. It doesn't strike. Instead, something extraordinary happens. The snake begins to speak. "Aren't you afraid of me?" it hisses. "This is my territory. How dare you come here?" The monk replies with calm wisdom. "Why should I fear you? I fear nothing. Not even death. But I sense that you fear death. And that is why you strike." At that moment, the snake is struck by a profound realization. It had never encountered anyone who wasn't afraid of it. Fear had been the snake's driving force, the fear of being harmed, of being killed. And that fear led it to attack others first. The monk's calmness, his lack of fear, challenges the snake's worldview entirely. This moment is transformative, not just for the snake, but for anyone who listens. Buddha often said that true fearlessness comes from understanding and compassion, not from dominating or attacking. The monk continues. It is not right to harm others simply because you fear them. Let go of your fear, and embrace love instead. The snake listens intently. It has never encountered such wisdom. Deeply moved, it decides to follow the monk's advice. The snake vows to stop biting, to give up its aggression and live peacefully. But, as we'll see, the snake's decision is not as simple as it may seem. The monk has not only addressed the snake's fears, but he has opened up a deeper question. Can kindness and fear coexist? Can one be kind without being vulnerable? This is the core issue that Buddha will address with the king. The misunderstanding and its consequences. The snake, now transformed, stops attacking. For a time, it lives peacefully. However, something unexpected happens. The villagers, who had once feared the snake, now see it as harmless. They begin to approach it without hesitation, teasing it, poking it, and even hurting it. The snake, no longer able to defend itself, becomes injured and miserable. It has been left vulnerable by its decision to give up its fear-driven aggression. The monk eventually returns to the village and sits under the same tree. Noticing the snake in a pitiful state, he asks, "What happened, my friend? Who has harmed you?" The snake, now wounded and confused, responds, "You told me to stop biting. But since I stopped, people no longer fear me. They torment me, hurt me, and leave me in pain. I am in a miserable condition. What should I do? At this point, Buddha explains the deeper lesson. He smiles gently and says, "My friend, you misunderstood my teaching. I never told you to stop defending yourself. I told you to stop attacking others out of fear. There is a difference. Life sometimes requires us to protect ourselves. But we must do so wisely, without letting fear control our actions." Connecting to the king's situation, Buddha turns back to the king, who has been listening attentively. Your situation is similar. Buddha says, "You, too, have misunderstood my teachings. I told you to let go of cruelty. But I did not ask you to abandon your responsibilities as a ruler. You must maintain authority. If you want to keep order in your kingdom, you cannot allow lawbreakers to go unpunished. People should respect and fear you, or else crime and chaos will take over your kingdom. Without strong leadership, your kingdom will suffer." This is where the key lesson lies. Buddha is not saying that kindness should be abandoned. Rather, he's teaching the king that leadership requires both compassion and strength. There is a time to be kind, but there is also a time to stand firm. Leadership, in any form, requires the balance of gentleness and authority. Buddha advises the king to lead with the authority of a ruler, but within that authority, to maintain compassion and wisdom. In this way, the kingdom will remain peaceful, and the people will respect their leader. The king must be firm, but not cruel. Just like the snake must be peaceful, but not defenseless. This part of Buddha's teachings reminds us of the balance required in our own lives. Kindness is essential, but it must be paired with wisdom, and sometimes strength. Buddha's story isn't just about being kind, it's about knowing when to act decisively to protect yourself and others. In the modern world, this is an important lesson, whether in leadership, relationships, or personal well-being. The lesson of kindness and boundaries. The power of kindness in modern life. After Buddha shares the story of the snake and the king's dilemma, he provides a deeper understanding of kindness and how it can be misapplied if not balanced with wisdom. The key idea is that kindness is a powerful virtue. But like all virtues, it must be practiced with discernment. The Buddha does not say that kindness is wrong, but rather that excessive kindness, without boundaries, can lead to exploitation. In modern times, we see this dilemma play out constantly. Take the example of famous leaders like Abraham Lincoln or Mahatma Gandhi. Both of these figures were known for their compassion, for their ability to forgive and treat others with kindness. However, neither of them allowed their compassion to make them weak. Lincoln, in the middle of the Civil War, had to make tough decisions that were not always popular, but were necessary for the survival of the Union. Gandhi, in his non-violent struggle for India's independence, faced fierce opposition, and had to maintain strict discipline within his movement, to keep it from being taken advantage of by those who sought to derail his efforts. The Buddha's message to the king is relevant in today's context as well. In leadership positions, Whether in the political sphere, business, or personal relationships, there are times when kindness must be paired with strength. A leader who is too kind, who fails to enforce boundaries or maintain authority, risks being undermined. If kindness is not tempered with wisdom, it can turn into a weakness that others exploit. The consequences of being too kind. Buddha's teaching is timeless, and it speaks to an age-old problem. What happens when people are overly kind and allow themselves to be taken advantage of? In personal relationships, this often manifests when one person is always forgiving, always accommodating, while the other takes advantage of their generosity. Consider the example of a famous historical figure, Mother Teresa. She devoted her life to helping the poor and the sick. Her kindness and compassion were legendary. Yet there were those who took advantage of her devotion, knowing that she would never turn them away. Mother Teresa's story highlights the fine line between selfless service and exploitation. While her compassion was extraordinary, it's clear that she faced immense challenges in maintaining a balance between her giving nature and the needs of those she served. The Buddha teaches us that kindness must have limits. If you are too kind, you risk enabling bad behavior or allowing yourself to be exploited. In modern workplaces, for instance, there is often an employee who is always ready to lend a hand, help with tasks, and pick up the slack. However, over time, this person may find themselves overwhelmed and taken for granted, as others rely on their generosity without reciprocating. This leads to frustration and burnout, as the overly kind individual becomes exhausted from constantly giving without receiving in return. The same happens in relationships, whether romantic, familial, or friendships. If one person is always forgiving, always understanding, the other partner may begin to take advantage of that. They might neglect their responsibilities or act in a way that undermines the relationship, knowing that the forgiving partner will always forgive them. This creates an unhealthy dynamic where one person carries the emotional burden of the relationship, while the other benefits without offering anything in return. The importance of setting boundaries. Buddha's story, when examined through the lens of modern life, teaches us the importance of setting boundaries. Kindness, while essential, is not a free pass for others to exploit us. Setting boundaries is crucial in maintaining healthy relationships and protecting ourselves from being taken advantage of. Buddha doesn't suggest that we abandon our kindness, but that we set limits on how much we give and ensure that we do not sacrifice our well-being in the process. Take the example of Bill Gates, a modern-day figure known for both his philanthropy and business acumen. While Gates has donated billions to charitable causes, he has also built a business empire that required clear boundaries and a strong leadership approach. Gates has often spoken about the importance of setting limits, not just in business, but also in personal life. He once said, "We always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. This is a reminder that boundaries, whether personal or professional, are essential for long-term success. In relationships, setting boundaries can mean saying no when you are asked to do something that doesn't align with your values, or when you simply cannot give more of your time or energy. It means taking care of your needs while also helping others. Ensuring that your kindness is not drained by endless demands. When we set clear boundaries, we show respect for ourselves and for others. And we create space for meaningful, reciprocal relationships. Applying the lesson to leadership and authority. In the story of the king, Buddha teaches the importance of maintaining authority while being compassionate. This is particularly relevant in leadership roles. Whether you are a manager, a business owner, a teacher, or a parent, the lesson remains the same: leadership requires both strength and kindness. Look at someone like Winston Churchill, who led Britain through World War II. Churchill's leadership was both firm and compassionate. He understood the importance of standing strong in the face of adversity. But he also connected with his people on a deeply human level. He could be stern when necessary. But he also demonstrated immense empathy for those affected by the war. A modern business leader, like Jeff Bezos, illustrates the same point. Bezos is known for his innovative thinking and his approach to building Amazon into one of the most successful companies in the world. Yet, Bezos also values the importance of leadership that listens to its employees and makes compassionate decisions. He recognizes the need for a balance between being firm and being empathetic. In his leadership, Amazon has shown that success comes from not just having authority, but from understanding the needs and well-being of others. In both political and business leadership, as in personal life, the key is to blend authority with compassion. Without authority, there is chaos. Without compassion, there is resentment. The Buddha's lesson to the king is a reminder that true leadership requires both. If we look at the great leaders in history, they all understood that it's not enough to just be kind. We must also be firm when necessary, holding ourselves and others accountable. This balance is what makes a leader respected, trusted, and effective. The paradox of kindness and authority. The paradox of kindness and authority is central to Buddha's teachings. On one hand, we are called to be compassionate, to help those in need, and to treat others with respect and kindness. On the other hand, we must also stand firm when necessary, set boundaries, and protect ourselves from exploitation. The snake's transformation in Buddha's story highlights this paradox. While it initially gave up its aggression, it was not enough to just stop biting. It also needed to defend itself and set boundaries with the villagers who had no respect for its kindness. This paradox is something that many leaders, professionals, and individuals face in their daily lives. The challenge is not in being kind or being authoritative, but in understanding when and how to apply each. It's about knowing when to lead with compassion and when to enforce discipline. When we find this balance, we create environments of mutual respect and understanding, whether in our personal relationships, our workplaces, or our communities. In conclusion, Buddha's story of the king and the snake serves as a timeless lesson on the importance of balancing kindness with authority. It reminds us that kindness is not weakness, and that we must always be mindful of setting healthy boundaries to protect ourselves and others from harm. Whether in leadership, personal relationships, or daily interactions, the key to living a meaningful life is to practice compassion while also standing firm when necessary. Applying kindness and strength in our lives. The dangers of overextending kindness. In this part of Buddha's lesson, we delve deeper into the real-world consequences of being too kind without boundaries. The Buddha's story about the snake isn't just a tale from ancient times, it's an insightful commentary on the human condition and a warning about the dangers of excess kindness. We live in a world that often encourages us to be kind, to be helpful, to show compassion to those around us. This is undoubtedly a noble ideal. However, being overly kind without discernment can result in negative consequences, both for ourselves and for others. If we are too kind, we might find ourselves caught in situations where we're being exploited or taken advantage of. Consider the story of Andrew Carnegie, the famous steel magnate and philanthropist. Carnegie is often celebrated for his generosity and efforts to improve society through funding libraries and other public works. Yet, his early life as an industrialist is marked by fierce competition and exploitation of workers. Carnegie's wealth and success were built on the backs of those who worked long hours for little pay. In some sense, his kindness came too late, after he had already amassed his fortune through ruthless business practices. While Carnegie later turned to philanthropy, his example also teaches us that kindness alone isn't enough. We must have a strong sense of self-awareness and boundaries in order to ensure that our actions don't lead to harm or exploitation. If we are too generous with our time, energy, or resources, others may begin to take advantage, leaving us drained and resentful. The need for discernment in kindness. Buddha's story urges us to be mindful of how we apply kindness in our lives. Kindness is not a one-size-fits-all virtue. The real challenge lies in knowing when to apply kindness and when to exercise strength or authority. For example, in the workplace, leaders and managers are often expected to be supportive and understanding of their employees. However, when kindness is taken too far, when there are no clear boundaries or expectations, it can lead to problems. Managers who are too lenient might allow their employees to slack off, resulting in poor performance or a lack of discipline. On the other hand, overly strict managers can stifle creativity and create a hostile environment. A successful leader, much like the Buddha's advice to the king, must find the balance. A leader must be firm when needed, but also understanding and compassionate in the right situations. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, provides an interesting example of this balance. Jobs was known for being a demanding and sometimes harsh leader, but he also understood the value of kindness and inspiration. He would push his team hard, setting high expectations. But he also had a vision that drove him to support his team in a way that inspired creativity and innovation. Jobs didn't shy away from being tough on his employees, but he also created an environment where they could push the boundaries of what was possible. His leadership style, though controversial, was rooted in his clear understanding that kindness without discipline can lead to mediocrity, but authority without compassion can lead to resentment. Embracing boundaries in relationships. The application of Buddha's teachings on kindness and strength is not just relevant in leadership or professional settings, but also in our personal relationships. Whether in friendships, family, or romantic partnerships, setting boundaries is essential for maintaining healthy, mutually respectful relationships. Take the example of a well-known figure like Oprah Winfrey. Oprah is widely admired for her kindness, compassion, and willingness to help others. However, she has often spoken about the importance of setting boundaries in her personal life and career. She learned early on that being too generous with her time and energy could lead to burnout or exploitation. Oprah has said that she had to learn to say no and protect her peace in order to continue being effective in her work and supportive of others. In romantic relationships, the same principles apply. If one partner is always giving, always compromising, always putting the other person's needs first, it can lead to an imbalanced relationship. Eventually, this imbalance can breed resentment, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. Relationships thrive on mutual respect, where both partners support each other and respect each other's boundaries. Without this balance, kindness becomes a tool for exploitation, not love. The key is understanding that kindness is important, but it must be balanced with self-respect and healthy boundaries. This doesn't mean we should be cold or unkind, but rather that we must recognize when our kindness is being taken for granted. In relationships, this might mean speaking up when we feel our needs aren't being met or setting clear limits on what we're willing to tolerate. In the workplace, it might mean taking a firm stand when someone repeatedly asks for favors without reciprocating. Strength and compassion in parenting. One of the most profound places where kindness and strength intersect is in parenting. Parents are naturally inclined to be kind and loving toward their children, and rightly so. However, excessive kindness without authority can lead to children who are unprepared to navigate the world. It's essential for parents to set boundaries and enforce rules, while also nurturing their children's emotional development with love and compassion. Consider the example of Michelle Obama, former First Lady of the United States, and her approach to parenting. In her memoir, Becoming, she reflects on how she and her husband, Barack Obama, raised their daughters with clear expectations, discipline, and kindness. She emphasizes the importance of teaching responsibility and accountability while also creating an environment where her daughters felt supported and loved. Michelle Obama's parenting style exemplifies the balance between kindness and strength, offering both compassion and authority to guide her children toward becoming responsible, empathetic adults. In the Buddha's teachings, we see the importance of cultivating this balance. Parents are not meant to be soft or overly indulgent, nor are they supposed to be strict and authoritarian. True parenting, according to the Buddha's wisdom, is about knowing when to provide gentle guidance and when to set firm limits. Just as Buddha instructed the king to be compassionate yet firm, parents must learn to guide their children with both love and discipline, defending our values with strength. Buddha's story also teaches us that we must be willing to defend our values and principles when necessary. In our world, there are many who will challenge or undermine the things we believe in. And it's essential that we don't let our kindness or desire to avoid conflict prevent us from standing up for what is right. Consider the example of Martin Luther King Jr., who fought for racial equality and justice in the United States. King was a strong advocate for nonviolent resistance, but he also understood that standing up for justice required strength. He faced immense opposition, including threats to his life. Yet he persisted in his fight for civil rights. Martin Luther King Jr. exemplified the Buddha's teachings of compassion and strength. He was kind, loving, and committed to peace. But he was also firm in his belief that justice and equality must prevail. In today's society, we also face many challenges, whether related to social issues, political beliefs, or personal values. The story of the snake reminds us that kindness alone is not enough to protect us or advance our values. Sometimes, we must stand firm and assert ourselves to prevent being exploited or undermined. Conclusion: striking the balance between kindness and strength. The Buddha's story of the king and the snake offers profound insights into how we can navigate life's challenges. Kindness is a virtue, but it must be practiced wisely. We must set boundaries to protect ourselves from exploitation and be strong when necessary to defend our values, relationships, and well-being. Whether in leadership, personal relationships, or societal issues, the key to success and fulfillment lies in balancing kindness with strength. It is through this balance that we can live authentically, protect our peace, and create environments of mutual respect and understanding. The Buddha's teachings are timeless, and they offer us practical wisdom for facing the complexities of modern life with both compassion and strength. The importance of setting boundaries and embracing strength. The struggle with weakness in kindness. In this section of the Buddha's teaching, we explore one of the critical points: when kindness is misapplied, it can inadvertently lead to weakness. As the story of the snake shows, kindness, without a firm understanding of its limits, can leave us vulnerable, while compassion is a powerful force for good. It's also a double-edged sword. When kindness becomes a default mode for every situation, without the wisdom to distinguish when to be firm, it can create environments where exploitation and chaos take root. This is where the Buddha's lesson resonates strongly with modern challenges. In our personal and professional lives, we sometimes face situations where our kindness is taken advantage of, or where it is perceived as weakness rather than generosity. The issue is not with kindness itself, but with the lack of boundaries to protect that kindness. One clear example of this is found in the business world, particularly among entrepreneurs who are too lenient with their employees or partners. Take, for instance, Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin Group, known for his charismatic and approachable leadership style. While Branson's kindness and empathy for his employees have helped build a unique company culture, there were times when his leniency and reluctance to set firm boundaries led to challenges in managing his business effectively. Branson himself has admitted that he learned the hard way that being too nice can sometimes hinder business growth and productivity, particularly when tough decisions need to be made. Without the strength to assert authority when necessary, leaders can lose control, and employees may take advantage of their kindness, leading to lower performance or even exploitation. This example highlights the importance of knowing when to exercise strength and assert boundaries in order to maintain respect and ensure that kindness is not misinterpreted as weakness. Kindness without strength becomes a tool for others to exploit, leaving us vulnerable to mistreatment or burnout. The challenge of balancing kindness with strength. As Buddha advised the king, there is a delicate balance between being kind and being firm. To be truly compassionate does not mean abandoning our responsibility to uphold justice, order, and respect. It means understanding that kindness and strength must coexist to create a balanced and harmonious life. Consider the example of Nelson Mandela, whose leadership in ending apartheid in South Africa offers another powerful illustration of this principle. Mandela was known for his extraordinary kindness, empathy, and willingness to forgive those who had oppressed him and his people. However, his kindness was not passive, it was grounded in strength. The strength of his convictions, his commitment to justice, and his unyielding resolve to end apartheid. Mandela's journey wasn't one of simply being nice or gentle, it was one of strength and moral courage. He had to endure long years of imprisonment. And even after his release, he faced immense challenges in leading a country through a difficult transition. He understood that kindness without the strength to support it could lead to compromise and, ultimately, failure. Mandela's approach teaches us that true kindness requires us to be strong enough to stand up for what is right, even when it is difficult. It requires us to make hard decisions, to assert boundaries, and to be firm in the face of opposition. Kindness, when applied with strength, does not mean tolerating mistreatment or letting people take advantage of us. Instead, it means being firm in our values and using compassion to guide our actions. The Buddha's story also teaches us that the snake's weakness came not from a lack of kindness, but from the absence of a strong sense of self-awareness and the failure to recognize when it was necessary to defend itself. This failure to protect oneself, whether in relationships, leadership, or personal development, can be disastrous. We can be kind, but we must also be vigilant about protecting ourselves from those who would take advantage of our goodwill. Developing self-awareness and emotional strength. To implement the Buddha's teachings in our own lives, we must develop a deep sense of self-awareness and emotional strength. Self-awareness allows us to recognize when kindness is appropriate, and when we need to assert ourselves to protect our well-being. Emotional strength enables us to make tough decisions, set boundaries, and avoid being taken advantage of by others. One person who exemplified both self-awareness and emotional strength is Maya Angelou, the renowned poet, author, and civil rights activist. Angelou's life and work reflect a powerful combination of compassion, strength, and resilience. She was known for her deep kindness and empathy, but she also had a strong sense of boundaries and the ability to stand up for herself and others when needed. Angelou's emotional strength was evident in her willingness to speak out against injustice and her determination to create a life that honored her values and principles. She faced tremendous challenges throughout her life, including racism and trauma. But she always emerged stronger and more resilient because of her unwavering belief in her own worth and the power of kindness combined with strength. Self-awareness and emotional strength are cultivated through consistent practice, reflection, and mindfulness. The Buddha's teachings on compassion are not about being weak or passive. They are about cultivating the wisdom to understand when to act with kindness and when to act with strength. This is the path to true emotional resilience and the ability to navigate life's challenges with grace and dignity. Boundaries in everyday life. The practice of setting boundaries isn't just about maintaining control over our own lives. It's also about ensuring that we create an environment where others can respect and honor our time, energy, and resources. This is especially important in personal relationships, where boundaries are often tested. The Buddha's story of the snake teaches us that kindness alone is insufficient. It must be reinforced by clear boundaries and a firm sense of self-respect. Take the example of author and entrepreneur Tim Ferriss, known for his productivity and lifestyle design. Ferriss often speaks about the importance of setting boundaries to protect his time and energy. He has shared how, early in his career, he allowed himself to be too accommodating, saying yes to every opportunity and request. This led to burnout and a lack of focus on his true goals. Over time, he learned the importance of saying no and setting strict boundaries, even with friends and colleagues. By doing so, he was able to focus on what truly mattered to him. And in doing so, he built a successful career while also maintaining his well-being. This is an important lesson for all of us. We must learn to say no when necessary and protect our emotional and physical resources. We must set boundaries in our personal lives to ensure that we are not overextended and that our kindness is not exploited. Boundaries don't make us less kind. They help us preserve our energy and ensure that we can continue to be generous and compassionate without depleting ourselves. Conclusion: the power of balanced strength and kindness. Ultimately, the Buddha's teachings remind us that kindness and strength are not mutually exclusive, they are complementary. By combining compassion with the strength to set boundaries, assert ourselves, and make tough decisions, we can navigate the challenges of life with greater wisdom and resilience. Whether in leadership, personal relationships, or self-care, the ability to balance kindness with strength is essential. By doing so, we can create a life that is not only fulfilling and meaningful but also one that commands respect and honors our own needs and boundaries. The Buddha's wisdom is timeless, and as we apply it to our lives, we can walk the path of compassion and strength with confidence and clarity. As we've learned from the Buddha's story, kindness is an extraordinary quality, but it's not enough on its own. True compassion is paired with strength, wisdom, and the ability to set clear boundaries to protect our well-being. The balance between these two forces is the key to navigating life's challenges. It ensures that our kindness doesn't become a weakness, whether it's in our relationships, our work, or our personal growth. We must have the courage to protect ourselves while extending compassion to others. So, ask yourself, where in your life can you blend kindness with strength? Are there areas where you've been too lenient, letting others take advantage of your good nature? And how can you take the lessons from this video to create a healthier, more balanced approach to your relationships and responsibilities? If you found value in today's story and want to learn more about how to live with wisdom, strength, and compassion, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to Buddhist Balance. Let's continue to grow together, learning to live a balanced life that harmonizes our inner kindness and outer strength. See you in the next video.